Hello, happy June, happy Pride Month. I'm so glad you guys are here. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the painting right now. I'm going to be painting from an image that we've done. It's on my computer. I'm going to be looking at it. But happy Pride Month, everybody. All right, today we're going to be doing a rainbow painting, a rainbow skyline. And this is pretty cool. It's a pretty simple skyline. And what's so cool about it is it can really be switched to any skyline wherever you are in the world. So I'm going to show you, I really only know the Boston skyline, but I'll show you what I do. When I approach skylines, I'll show you a little bit about how I kind of customize a skyline. Okay, so to begin, first of all, when I use palettes, I don't have any fancy palettes. I have this one, but people get really stressed out because I just paint over paint over paint over paint. So it's kind of like a heavy work of art at this point. I just take a piece of computer paper, kind of lay it on top, use one side, flip it, use the other. I just try to reuse my paper and palettes as much as possible so I don't waste them. All right. I also have a paper towel. We're going to use this paper towel to wipe our brushes on after we clean our brushes off. Then we also have a square brush. We have our big brush. So I'm using the brush pack that we use at the paint bar. I probably won't even use all the brushes in this tonight. However, if you have something that's kind of like what we have, fantastic. Does not need to be all the same. Okay. So first brush I have is the big brush. Then I have our medium brush. I have our round brush, round it all the way around, comes together on top. Square brush, baby brush. Okay. Again, you do not need to have all these paint brushes to do this painting tonight, but it is what I use. So I should introduce myself. I'm Jackie, one of the owners of the paint bar. Psyched that you're all here. All right. I also have a glass of water. I just put some in a mason jar, not to be confused with any beverage you might be drinking. Always important. So let's get started. Okay. First thing we're going to do is we're going to also, as you come on in, say hello, comment, let me know where you're painting from tonight. Let me know if you're painting along with me. I always like to know who's watching. You need to accept StreamYard to allow me to see you. All right, so I forget the wording. I always forget what it says, but you just need to give permission so that if you comment, I can see who you are. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my big brush. I'm going to take out the biggest brush of all. It's flat on the sides, flat on top. Every time you use a new brush, you always want to give it a little dunk into your water. So take that big brush, give it a little dunk into your water, tap it off a few times. I usually suggest like 3 taps on one side, 3 taps on the other, and then you're going to wipe it off on your paper towel. All right, now we're going to start off by taking our brush. We're going to make a blue sky and some blue water. So we're going to start with the sky. Hey, Jenny and Sue, great to see you guys. Sue's in Arlington. Jenny is not in the Boston area, but glad to have you all here. All right, so take this big brush, give it a little dunk into your blue, and then a dunk into your white. And whenever I mix into the white, I always want to make sure I stay on the outer edges of the white. You don't want to like fully contaminate the whole puddle, so kind of work on the outer edges, all right? And Patty, thrilled to hear that you are painting tonight. Happy Pride to you too. Okay, so I'm going to come down about 1/3 of the way. So I want you to imagine, this is also an 11 by 14 inch canvas, but any size you're using, whether it's paper, canvas, whatever you're using, you do not need to use this exact canvas. The proportions we'll use for, will work for any size painting. So come down this canvas about 1/3 of the way. All right, imagine it's a brownie. And you're just slicing it into 3 sections as if you're splitting it with your friends, which like who wants to do that, right? So coming down 1/3 of the way, I'm going to make a little mark. All right, this is going to be my sky. I might come down like a little bit lower, okay? Now from that mark, and this is where the negativity usually comes in. People are like, oh my God, I hate my mark. So don't hate your mark, love your mark, and realize you're never going to actually see this mark again. We're going to cover it up. So I'm going to go from this mark, and I'm going to paint all the way across. Like this. Ta-da! All right, it doesn't need to be perfectly straight. If it's a little bit wobbly, that's okay. All right, now I'm going to paint everything from this line all the way up using a little bit of blue and then a nice big scoop of my white. So I want you guys to use a lot of white. When you're painting a sky, it's so much easier to use a lot of paint. Like, see how much I have on there? It'll go back and forth so much easier. And you're not going to hear that noise of scraping paint against the canvas. It'll be nice and smooth. It makes blending a lot easier. Hey, Ellen, glad that you're on here. Hope you're having a good night. So a little bit more blue and some more white. I'm going to pick up my paint so you can all see it a little bit better. Big brush strokes, nice big ones. When you have not much paint on there, it's like spreading icing on a cake. Okay, and you don't want any little dots showing through. So big scoops, little bit of blue, big scoop of my white, going back and forth. All right, and we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. All right, and now if you want to, you can paint your sides. We call this a gallery wrap. That way, if you hang it on the wall, it looks nice and pretty. All right, so kind of like a gallery, you know, you might end up in a gallery one day. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you can do this now or you can do this later. The perk to doing this now is that you get the same color that's on your brush. So like if you remix a light blue later, you might have a harder time getting it to be the same as what's on the front. So just something to think about, but I find it easiest to honestly, I don't know. I can't decide. Sometimes I like to do it while I'm painting. Sometimes I like to do it at the end. But big brush strokes back and forth. Also notice that I keep redunking a little bit of my blue, big scoop of my white, and notice how I let everything mix on the canvas. So I'm not pre-mixing the paint. I'm letting it all mix right on top of the canvas. All right, and I like that because I get these cool streaks. Number one, I think it's more interesting when you have those streaks. And number two, it kind of looks like clouds, right? So personal preference, not for everybody. If you want to pre-mix, by all means, go for it. All right, and then the last thing is you want to paint on the sides. On the top here. So I'm just going to do all the sides really quickly. All right. Man, I wish I could figure out a way to like virtually do a raffle, and then whoever's watching gets his painting. Patty, I feel like you might be someone who would know how to do that. Patty is the logistics queen for everything. So you can figure that one out, Patty. All right, big long brush strokes. So what I'm doing now is just smoothing out, making sure there's no big globs, making sure that there's no white canvas showing like down here, making sure that's pretty much it. Okay, big brush strokes back and forth. So I don't want to do this too many times because this will it'll overblend, and you don't want to overblend. You want it to look nice like that. Okay. All right, now we're going to paint our water, and I want the water to be like a little bit streakier. Hello, Sarah. I miss you too. Great to have you on here. So I'm going to paint my water, and I want my water to be a little bit darker than my sky. I'm also going to mix in just a little bit of my purple. Okay, now I have this beautiful fluorescent purple color. If you do not have this, any purple will do. All right. So you already know how to do it. Oh, Patty, I love this idea. Patty is logistics for everything. I love it. So I'm going to paint this bottom half. I'm going to use blue. I'm going to use purple, and I'm going to use some white. Okay. So some blue, and I'm using a bigger scoop now than I did before. So a bigger scoop of blue, and I'm actually going to just do blue and white first, and then I'm going to add in my purple. If I were to mix my purple in now, well, let me show you what will happen. Okay. It's just going to get kind of like eaten alive, basically. I'm going to take my blue. I'm going to take some of my purple, which already is kind of covered, not showing up too much, and my white. And when I put it on here, you're just not going to see. The purple is going to kind of just get mixed in. So it's still pretty. You're still able to see it. Oh, it's coming out actually better than I thought. But eventually, I just feel like the blue eats up the purple. So I'm going to, I'll show you the other option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a tip. So to make it nice and like, see how you can see those little dots there in between the white? You don't want the white. You want to cover it up. So I'm going to actually paint right on top of my sky. And I know it's always so scary when two colors touch each other, but you want to try to let go of that fear. All right. When we're painting, let go of the fear. And I got itchy on my face. So I'm going to take a little bit more of the blue, some white. If you're running out of paint, whenever you start to paint and you start to see the white showing through, it means you do not have enough paint on your brush. All right. So everyone here, if you are someone who has painted with us before and you love painting the water, I want you to give it a little heart. All right, give us a little heart and tell us, because I find the sky and the water so relaxing to paint. My favorite. So I'm going to use a little more white, some dark blue going right up to the sky. You can even paint over the sky a little bit. And I'm using a little bit of blue and white on my brush at the same time. And in 1 second, I'm going to show you a different approach to painting. Okay, so there we go. Now, if you wanted the purple to show up even more, what I might suggest you do is using some blue and some white. All right, and then I want this to be darker, so I'm going to use more of my blue. But then I'm also going to separately use the purple. All right, now, what you can see here on this side, like you can see how the purple stands out a little bit more than this side. So if you really want to see brighter streaks of the purple, then my suggestion is you do some of the blue. Oops, that's purple. Do some of the blue and white, And then afterwards, you add in your purple. And the paint is still wet because remember, we're using a lot of paint. It'll just kind of blend in really, really nicely. Okay. Hey, Ashley. Oh, I love this crew watching tonight. So fun. If you haven't said you're watching, tell me you're watching and then I'll know it's you and I can say hi to you. So I'm going to use a little bit of blue, a big scoop of my white, back and forth and back and forth. And I'm going to get some more paint, more blue on here. Big brush strokes. So I'm going to come back in that purple in 1 minute. All right, now for my type A's, you're like, oh my God, my sides are wet. How are you touching it? What I like to do is I like to hold the corner and the corner isn't as wet. Hey, Catherine. All right, I got all the members on here. So if you are a member, give me a little heart. Let me see you're on here. And then if you're not a member, I got to know. Tell me. Not a member, but maybe you want to be one of our members. Tia! Wow, what a crew coming on tonight. Love you all. All right, so here we go. We're almost all done with it. My blue. Wow, okay. We're done with the blue. So what I'm going to do is, first thing, because I want light blue on my sides, before I add my purple in, I just have a little bit of light blue left on my palette. So I'm just going to paint my sides really quickly. Paint the sides. So awesome. I just want to make sure since I started painting the sides, I just want to be consistent and I want to finish my sides. And then we're about to, and sometimes like paint will clump at the ends, which is kind of my favorite because then I can pull that over on the sides as well. Ta-da. Okay, now let's do the bottom. All right, and sometimes like, okay, here, for instance, here's my palette right now. There's like no paint on there, right? So to make my blue last a little bit longer, I'm just gonna take my brush, dip it in the water, just a little bit, tap it off. And I'm just gonna use a little bit of water to help spread, especially on the bottom. Nobody looks at the bottom of your canvas. So if you have thinner paint on there, it's perfect to use a little bit of water to help spread it out. All right, now, there we go. I'm gonna cut, so now all my sides are covered. And I'm going to use my purple now. I'm just going to take my brush with a little white and some purple. And I'm just going to go very lightly right on top of my blue. And especially if there are areas that still have little white marks, it's perfect to just throw that purple, like right down here, for instance. Still has a little bit of white. I'm going to go right in there. Now, I could get some more blue on there, and I will when it comes to making our skyline. I just wanted to, sometimes I just want to finish the water first. Okay, so we got some streakiness happening in our water. All right, now you guys can decide how much purple you want. I know we have some big purple fans. You're a big purple fan, let me know it. Tell me in the comments. Tell me your favorite color. If you're not a purple fan, I actually, one of our girls, Kaylee, is like anti-purple. She does not like the color purple. So each to their own. I happen to know when we do paintings with purple, people sign up. So hi, Tina. The gang's all here tonight. All right, I'm going to put my big brush in my water. Oh, Rebecca, with your purple hearts, it probably means you like purple. I like purple too. Purple is actually one of those colors that redheads can wear. Sometimes there's some colors like I don't wear red, I don't wear pink, I don't wear orange. You wouldn't even like know where my head and my shirt are. But purple's okay. I can wear purple sometimes, although my husband does not like purple. So weirdos. All right, let's get started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, first of all, my recommendation for you is probably to let this dry a little bit. So especially if you're watching this on replay, I suggest pausing here, letting the background dry. What I like to do is I like to paint and get everything on there and like layer. And if things mix, I'll come back and layer on top later. But if that is something that totally stresses you out, then I suggest you get a little blow dryer, which mine is somewhere. It's not plugged in because I'm not going to use it right now, but here it is, little Revlon blow dryer. These are the best. It's like really inexpensive. Buy it on Amazon. It's perfect. So you don't have to wait if you're at home for their painting to dry. Okay, but we're not gonna do it tonight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start off using my baby brush and I'm going to outline my buildings. Now, here's what I can talk about how you can personalize your buildings. So I happen to know most people watching here are from the Boston area. However, a lot of you may not be from the Boston area. So what I do is I like to find the main buildings. So my main buildings in Boston are what we call the Prudential Center. And the Prudential Center kind of looks like a wedding cake. It has like, I'll show you in a second. And then the John Hancock is a really tall one. And then the Weather Tower has kind of like a triangle on top. So I tell you this because wherever you are, your skyline might have like its famous buildings, right? It might have like 1 to 2, 3 famous buildings. So I want you to choose 1, 2, or 3 famous buildings. And those are, and you also don't even have to have any kind of like intricate detail. So let's say one is like square and then has like a diagonal line on the top, draw that in, okay? If you have one that also is like mine that has a triangle top, put that in also. So I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do on ours, okay? So you don't need to do all of the, there doesn't need to be a very extensive, fancy, detailed skyline, just the basic main buildings. So my first one I'm gonna do is my Prudential Center. I'm sorry, my John Hancock. This is the tallest building. Well, it formerly was the tallest building. I need to add a new one to our skyline. I forget that fancy building, like went up right before COVID hit, and I don't even know the name of it, but that's okay. We're gonna come over from the left-hand side about 1/3 of the way. All right, so I want you, again, you're gonna imagine you're dividing your canvas into 3 chunks, coming over about a third away from a third from the top, so left-hand side over about 1/3, and then you guys are gonna come back down like somewhere between 1 inch, 2 inches. It depends on the size of your canvas. If you're using a really big canvas, you're gonna wanna leave more space. On mine here, I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna make the top of my Prudential Center about like 2 inches from the top. So if you haven't painted with us before, if you bend your pinky from knuckle to knuckle, this is about 1 inch, and we call this the paint bar inch. All right, so I'm gonna come down approximately like 1.5 inches to 2 inches, a third of the way over, something like this. And I'm outlining it in white first. Can you even see that? Where did I put it? Right there. And then I'm gonna come down on each side. So come down on one side and come down on the other side. All right. Now, in our first outline of buildings, it does not need to be a perfect outline. All right. It doesn't need to be, if it's a little bit wiggly, that's fine too. So one Dalton Place is not as tall as the Hancock building. I think there's another one, Ellen. I feel like there's something else that was just built that's like the tall, that beat the Hancock, and it's like a thing. But I could be wrong. I'm not positive. And I trust you to know, Ellen, because you actually know these things. And hey, Lori, I'm so glad. Okay, now the next building, we're going to go to the left of what we just made. And this building is our weather tower. This one has the triangle top. Now, it doesn't exactly look like what I'm about to paint. My painting is going to be an extremely simplified version of it, but it is enough that people can recognize it and think, oh, that looks like the Boston skyline. All right, so I'm going to come down my building about halfway on the left-hand side. So come down this John Hancock about halfway, like that. And then I'm going to make a line that comes down. All right, now I'm going to make a triangle on top. And then I'm going to take my baby brush. Now, when I have a ton of paint on my brush like this, I like to use the side of the brush. I kind of take my brush in my hand. See how I'm rolling it? So I like to kind of roll it on my paper, my palette, get all the little bristles to come together. And then you're going to make a nice little antenna. Okay, now I'm going to use my pinky. I use my pinky to support my hand. If your painting is not dry, then put your pinky down in a place you know you're going to cover up, because otherwise you're going to make a mark in your painting. So I know I'm going to cover up this building. I use my pinky for support, and I made a little line. Looks like my line's not perfectly straight. So when it's not perfectly straight, you just say it's a really windy day. All right, now I'm going to do one more. This is my next building that is like Boston-esque. So I usually don't do more than like 2 to 4 buildings. So if I were to really narrow it down, I would just do my John Hancock and then the Prudential I'm about to make. But then I add in the weather tower, and you can add in more and more after that. So this next one is about the same height and width as my weather tower here. So if you go from the John Hancock, it's about halfway from the John Hancock to the right-hand side of the canvas. Okay, and it's going to come down a little bit shorter, a little bit thinner than the John Hancock. And then it has a smaller little, little rectangle right on top. And then, like before, I'm going to spin my paintbrush around and give it a little antenna right on top. Ta-da! Okay, now, usually if I was just making it a skyline, I would say, okay, fill these in, and then you're just going to make lots of smaller little buildings, all different heights, using your square brush. Normally, I would not outline, but I'm going to outline these smaller buildings now because we're going to be filling them in rainbow order. All right, so what I do is different rectangles, all different heights and sizes. And my type A's, you guys watching, you guys tend to make things like almost like a staircase, like a perfect patterns. Our brains want to make patterns, and all of my type A's watching, you guys have brains that want to make patterns even more. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to make little rectangles All right, like now look, I already started making a pattern. Big, little, big. So I'm going to try to break it up. I don't want them to all be the same. Okay, so see, I'm trying to change it up a little bit so they're not perfect patterns. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. There we go. And then I'm going to, you love patterns, says Lori. I know it's a thing, especially for my type A's who are very analytical and your brains see things very clean. And you probably like have, I bet your drawers are very organized. So you had, except no parm. Lori had chicken parm. What did everyone else have for dinner? I said, I haven't eaten dinner yet. I just had a cookie at my mom's house before I picked up my kids. So cookies are good, right? All right, so there are our buildings. And now, while that's drying, I'm going to add in some clouds really quickly, okay? So we're going to let that dry, and we're going to fill them in a minute. So I'm going to add clouds. And to do clouds, I'm going to use my baby brush. Now, you can either use your baby brush or a round brush, so something that comes to a point. That's my favorite brush for doing clouds. So I'm going to use my baby brush, and I'm going to take it and dip it into my white. And if you dip it into some white that has a little bit of blue in it, not to worry, because it's just going to mix right in, okay? So I'm going to start like this. I'm going to add 2 clouds. I'm going to put one up here, and I'm going to put another one here. And here's my technique for making clouds. I make a line, so I'm going to come down about 1 inch or so, and I'm going to go from the edge of my canvas here. I'm going to bring it real close. Coming down about 1 inch, and then going across. I'm just going to make a line. Doesn't need to be a perfect line, okay? Then take my brush. I'm going to make a little rainbow right on top. And then I'm going to make 2 smaller ones on each side. And my little rainbow here is about 1/2 inch. You never want it to be more than 1 inch. Then you're going to have a real big cloud. So keep it small. All right, now here comes the blob part. Actually, let's do the other one too at the same time. So I'm going to do one more. This one's going to be a little bit lower. And this one's coming off the page also. So I'm going to come down my sky here, kind of from your buildings to the top, somewhere in the middle. And I'm going to make one. You just want it to be lower than the one we just made. Like that. All right, and then this one also, here, I'm going to make this one a little different. I'm going to make my rainbow going off my page, and I made that one a little bigger than this one, and then another little rainbow next to it. Okay? Then I'm going to use my paintbrush. I'm going to dip it into a little bit of blue and some white, and I'm just going to start blobbing into my rainbows, and I'm also going to blob just like slightly below my line. So it'll go like this. I hold my brush in the middle of the brush. I'll move my face out so you guys can see. And I'm just going to go blob, blob. And I want to blob like slightly on top of my cloud and then slightly below the line. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of blue on there and my white. And I'm going to do the same thing on each side, like this. All right, and then I'm just going to pull my brush very lightly out. And I'm going to do that on the same. So my trick with clouds are 2 things. Number 1, you don't want them to be super puffy in the middle. Like if you make one really big circle in the middle, then what happens is you get it looks like Princess Leia's hair or something. All right, so you want to keep it smaller. You could always make things bigger. It's a lot harder to make things smaller. And then at the ends, you want it to feel like silly putty, like you're pulling the silly putty out. So let's do this one over here on the side. I'm going to do the same thing. Blob, blob, blob. Oh, this one had a little purple, which is great. Add that purple in. Listen, it's Rainbow Month, Pride. So you can use any colors. Get in there, get creative. Whatever color you use is the perfect color. Okay? So you want to, so notice how it gets really thin at the end. You can even make it look like wispies are going through on the other side. That's fancy. There we go. Gotten fancy there. Excellent. Okay, so our clouds are done. Water is done. Sky is done. We have on my computer. All right, so now we're going to paint our buildings. So I'm going to use my square brush. And square brush is something like this. I think it's like number 6 square. I always wash these off and then lose what number it is. and there's paint all over it, so I also can't see. I'm going to dip my square brush into my water, tap it off, wipe it off. You could use a baby brush to fill this in if you don't have a square brush, but the square brush is literally the perfect size for all these little buildings. Now, I'm going to gradually change from one color to the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my buildings as my markers, like my landmarks for where each color is. So I'm going to start off, my Prudential Center is going to be yellow. Okay, now whenever I use the yellow, I also want to use some of my white. If your white, let me actually get a little bit more blue since I'm out. If your white is totally contaminated, I might suggest like a few little blobs of white so that you can easily mix them into other colors. I still have a pretty good amount of white left, but I'm going to be careful that it doesn't mix into my, there's a lot of blue around there, so I'm just going to be careful. And Lori says, your square brush is your favorite. It's a good brush. I like it for certain things. I would say round brush is my favorite. So in the comments, if you're watching, you're one of our frequent painters, I want to know what your favorite brush is. If you like round, let's just vote, round or square. Okay, so now I'm going to use my square brush. I'm going to use some yellow and white. If I don't use the white, this yellow is extremely see-through. You will see through it. You will see the blue through it, and it will look green. So I'm going to take a scoop of my white over here. So I just took a scoop. I'm just going to put it over here. I'm going to mix a little bit of my yellow in with it. So you just want to make it a little bit thicker. Now I'm going to start off by painting this taller building here yellow. And if your background is still a little wet, then you're going to have a color mixing issue. All right. So remember, that's okay. You can always come back and layer on top. Yes, a vote for round brush. Yay, Patty. I'm round also. All right. Who else? It's me versus Lori. Who likes square and who likes the round brush? And also, do you guys see a correlation in kind of cars you like? Do you like a more rounded car or like boxier car? So, which one is your favorite? Jenny says round brush. Awesome. Okay, Lori, looks like I'm in the lead right now. All right, so I'm going to come back to this one. All right. Oh, we got another round brush. Oh, man, I'm really taking it by storm. Anyone here also people who are saying round brush? Tia also, you guys probably like making flowers because flowers are great with round brush. Is there anyone on here who likes square? And Catherine says round brush, but you basically use baby brush for everything, which baby brush is just a small version of round brush. So Catherine, for those who don't know, is our most detailed painter. She is, her attention to detail is amazing. She should be a dentist. All right, now I'm going to make this one to the left orange. So I'm going to plot out my big buildings, and then I'm going to transition into other colors, okay? Actually, you know what? I take that back. Let's just do a few with the yellow since it's on my brush. Oh, Sasha says, Sasha is a square brush. Lori, you got a friend. There you go. Hey, Sasha. All right. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go, now everyone might have a different amount of buildings in between. So here's what I'll tell you. This one here is going to be blue. So that means in between, I'm going to have to fit together my, some yellow and some green. So to the left of my yellow, I'm going to have oranges and reds. And then to the right, and this doesn't need to be exact. So for those my type A's, I know you're watching, you're like, I just need the exact number of buildings that you have. I can't give you an exact number because everyone's is going to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go yellow. I'm going to do about 3 to 4 buildings with my yellow, and then we're going to go into green. Okay, so I'm going to make a few more. So I'm going to just paint right on top. So if you want to, also, you can use a baby brush for this. Absolutely. And I'm going to go like this. I'm going to come down. And I'm not going to worry too much about what happens when these buildings hit the water. I'm just going to paint right down to the water. Okay, so I'm going to do about 4 of them like that. Okay, now I'm going to move over to the left-hand side. I'm going to get a little bit of red. Now I'm going to make orange. When you mix orange, you do a tiny bit of red into your yellow. If you do too much red, then you're going to lose your orange. Okay, so I'm going to go like this and just do a little bit in here. And it's also good to have a little bit of white in there also. So I'm just going to add a little white into my yellow and white and red mixture. I'm going to add a little bit of red into my yellow and white mixture. All right. So I see we have more. I think that the round brush took the lead, but definitely people, there's more use, I think, for the round brush. It's more versatile, but when it comes to buildings, there is nothing better than a square brush. That is for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to fill in here. I'm going to go into these buildings, okay, like this. Here's my line. And I'm going to use, I'm going to go back in and get my baby brush out to fill in the top. Okay, also, if it ever becomes difficult to make a line, like my line right there is kind of bothering me, so I'm going to use my baby brush. Take my baby brush out, and I'm just wiping it off. Make sure it doesn't, often when you take it out of the water, it just retains a lot of paint. All right, now we got Team Lori and Sasha for square brush. All right, so I'm going to go like this. Okay, so I just filled it in. And notice how I move my painting around. So don't be afraid to pick your painting up off the easel, move it around so that it's a nice thing about a smaller canvas. Move it around so you get the angle that you want. Now I'm going to use my baby brush. I'm going to hold it by the tip so I have a nice control on there. All right, there we go. Put that back into the water. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of pull my brush down. So remember, we're splitting this with red and orange. So now I also like a little bit of pink. I kind of want to throw a pink one in there. Let's throw a pink one in there. Okay, so I'm going to take this brush. I'm going to do like a pinky orange color. It's going to be really pretty. So I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to dip it into more. So I'm not going to wash it off totally because I do want a little bit of orange. We're going to go from one color to the next. So I'm going to take this brush. I'm just going to wipe it off. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my red, kind of mix it in, and a little bit of my white. And I'm going to mix that in. We're going to get a more pink color. And then we're going to kind of split this area over here to the left with our pink and our red. So I'm just going to do about 2 of them with the pink. There we go. There's one. And the next one. And then we're going to do red over here. Yes to pink. Yay. I love pink. All right. And then I'm going to do these ones with my red. Okay. Now I'm going to get my straight line. It's easier for me to get a straight line if I hold it horizontally and just kind of wiggle my brush like that. That's my technique for a straight line or a baby brush. Either one will work. Okay, now this is might bother some type A's. My red one's like going in front of my pink one, but I'm okay with it. Now I'm going to clean my brush off. We're getting into the greens and blues. So I'm going to use, so basically my Prudential Center is blue. So this can be all different variations of green. So you can make it all one color. You can make different variations. I'm going to do a little bit of my yellow, a little yellow into some green. And then a little bit of the white. The white just makes it like a more solid color. All right, and I'm going to make all of these. I'm going to start with a few lighter ones. And then I'm going to add a little bit more green. They can get a little bit darker. So they don't all have to be the same color. I made those pretty much the same, but you can get a little funky with it. You can change it up. You can make them like lighter oranges that go into darker oranges or lighter greens that go into darker greens. The way you would make things lighter or darker, you can either add more white. So if you make more white, it'll change the color. So like my dark green will turn into almost like a seafoam turquoise green. And my, but if you add more yellow, it becomes more of like a bright green. So let's see another one. Excellent. Okay, now I'm going to wipe this brush off actually. I'm going to transition it into a blue. So let's let the colors mix together. Let's see what happens, right? All right, so I'm going to take this brush with the green and some yellow. I'm going to dip it into some of my blue, a little bit of white. Now we got to make it darker than the background, right? We don't want to mix in too much, but I do want to have a little bit of white in there. So I'm going to go like this, pull it down. This color I want, yes. Okay, so I'm going to just take my brush and make a little line for the top. Nope, need my baby brush. Don't like what's happening. Clean it off. Okay, let's do it again. I'm going to remake my outline. There we go. And there we go. Cool. Okay, Prudential. All right, now I just got a little bit of slobber all over my face. No big deal. Now I'm going to use some more of I have a little bit of green on my brush. All good. Some blue. And I'm just going to so now this area is going to be, I'm going to make this into one. We're going to make this into some blues. I'm going to have them get a little bit darker and purple. Oop, I just changed it up. All right, and then last, I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to put a little purple on it, and then I'll just kind of turn into a lighter purple as we go. So here's some blue and purple. And now I'm going to use my purple and some white. I really want my purple to stand out. I'm using a fluorescent purple, so it doesn't stand out as well as like a regular purple. But if you use a little bit of purple and mix it into the blue, that makes a cool color. I really encourage you guys to experiment with your color mixing and see what you got. Okay, there we go. How pretty! All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our reflection. So I'm going to start, just since I have the purple in my brush, I might as well start over here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to take the brush, I'm going to hold it like mid-brush. I'm going to let my hand be really loose because I'm going to take my brush and plop it down and just kind of like pull it, like let it flick towards my wrist. So I'm going to use some purple and a little bit of white, and I'm going to flick it down. So I'm going to use a lot of the white so it really shows up towards my wrist from that middle line. Okay, and you wanted to have some of them to be a little bit taller. So the taller billows be a little taller, some a little bit shorter. All right, now as I move over, I'm not gonna wash my brush off, let all the colors just kind of morph. I'm gonna take a little bit of blue on there, some green, some white. Get a little bit more blue. So that one's going to go down. Now my water's still a little bit wet, so when I pull, it's kind of moving the water, but I am okay with that. If that bothers you, then I would encourage you to use a blow dryer or just like let it dry a little bit longer. And yes, the phthalo blue and the purple mixed together is definitely one of my favorites too as well, Lori. So, okay, I'm just looking at the painting. Excellent. All right, now I'm going to take my brush. There's a lot of blue and purple on there, so I'm just going to wipe it off a little bit because we're going to add the green. And I want the green to show up. And it's okay if a little blue mixes in, but I just want a little bit more of the green. So I'm going to do some green, some yellow, maybe a little bit of white. And I'm just going to go from here and I'm going to pull down. All right, and pull up. Okay, so see we're morphing here. We're morphing. Now I'm going to clean the brush off because we're going into yellow, and you don't want the yellow. And this is where to go into the warmer tones. So we're in the cooler tones, not to get too color theory here on you, but we're going into our warmer tones. And I'm going to do some yellow and white. There we go. So for my my John Hancock, I have it come down a little bit longer. You're just varying it a little bit. And then I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to make a little orange, a little red, and some yellow. Does not need to the color does not need to match the top. It can be a little bit lighter or darker, so don't worry about trying to match the top. That could stress people out. We're not looking to stress people out here. Just have fun. All right, now we're moving into some pink. So I'm going to wipe my brush off again. If a little bit of my orange mixes in my pink, all good. I'm going to use a little bit of red and some white. I'm going to pull it down here. And then lastly, red. And there we go. Is this the best? Okay, now I'm going to use my baby brush. And I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to dip it. First, let's make our little, so in Boston, when we make the Skyline, we have like the brownstones in front, which we're going to do here in black. So some people might have like the big Skyline and then you have like little houses. So this kind of represents that. Now, every time I'm in my home studio and my big paintings are in a different part of my house, And I always forget to refill because I just like keep using a little bit of black. So you're gonna use your baby brush and your black, and you're gonna make tiny little buildings. And this is where like you can clean up the colors between your buildings and your reflection. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold my painting like this because it's easier for me to go vertically. I'm just gonna make a line with my black going down, 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 down. Again, doesn't need to be exact. All right, so I have a little line going across. Don't worry about being exact because we're gonna make little polka dots for lights, which will even, again, detract from all the imperfections. And I'm just going to make little rectangles, like all different sizes. And my type A's, you're going to probably spend hours on this, but I'm not going to let you do that. Or I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you how you can just, my suggestion is always just to make little lines go quickly. And you can always go back and like fill stuff in. And we're also working on a small canvas. So, they're extra small. You can make some bigger, some smaller. Again, you want to stay away from making things look too perfect, because otherwise you'll be making these little buildings for days. So I'm going to just get them on there, and then I'll come back and fill them in better. And they're really small. You really want to feel like they're in the foreground, which means they're in front, and the buildings are in the background. So I do have a little flat brush, not here, but that's also would be a really good brush to use for this section. And if this were on a bigger canvas, you could also use like a square brush and make them smaller. But because we're doing this on a smaller canvas tonight, it's not as easy to do. Let me fill these in a little bit more. So you'll notice that when I paint, I really bop around from one area to the other. So I, work over here and then I come back to here, and that keeps everything looking good. Also keeps my ADD mind focused in its own way. So actually, if in the comments, I'd be so interested to know, when you guys paint, do you like to paint on one section, or do you like to like bop around? Are you a bop arounder or a one section worker? It's really interesting. I think it says a lot about, when we used to do our corporate events, you'd find different people in different positions in the company would say certain things, which is really interesting. So like people who are project managers, and they kind of, or they're really good at like one thing, but then the people who kind of oversee a lot of different people, they like to bop around. And it's just, it's interesting what I would have a hard time if I was only doing one part of our business. But because as part owner of this business, I do a lot of bopping around. So kind of what I like to do. Okay, we're almost there. And donezo. Okay. Ta-da. All right, now you can always go back and you can touch things up, but that's good for right now. And then Lori says she likes to bop around. Interesting. All right, so now I'm going to do little dots in here. So if you wanted to, this is definitely not a perfect skyline here. Definitely not. So I'm going to make my black a little, I'm going to bring it down a little bit on both sides. But I'm also not going to let it bother me too much. If I were painting in front of it right now, I might work harder to perfect it, but because I'm sideways, that's always awkward. But yes, okay, we are done with this. So clean off your baby brush. You're going to, actually, while we have the black, let's do one more thing. While we have the black on our baby brush, one more thing. Last thing I like to do is a little plop and pull. So that means I like to dip my brush into the black, and I plop it down and lightly just kind of pull it till it runs out of paint. So what we're going to try to do now is we're going to clean up our buildings. All right, see there how it's kind of cleaning everything up? I don't make these into perfect lines. They're literally just little dashes. Dash, dash. Boop. And I'm going to come up here. right, so I'm doing little plop and pull lines all the way across. Almost done. But see how it cleans everything up? It looks so nice, right? There, done. I forgot a little bit right there. And clean my brush off. Oh, I forgot one more thing with the black. I keep forgetting I wanted to do everything when I have the black on my brush. Okay, one more thing, and then I swear we're done. There are little birds in the Skyline, so I'm going to say birds are extremely optional. Some of my least favorite things to teach because people end up making them and then don't like them. So practice, practice, practice before you go ahead and do this, okay? So I take the brush. I make sure there's a nice point, so I kind of rolled it around like before. We're going to make tiny little V's. So if you kind of go to this upper corner, if I use my pinky to support my hand, I'm just going to make a little line on one side like that, little V's. But see how imperfect they are? Like the lines don't even touch. That's okay. Those look like angry eyebrows, actually, when they're right next to each other. And then I'm going to do two more over here. Now, the bigger the bird is, the closer it is to you. So keep that in mind. All right, and I don't usually like to do more than like 3. If you make more than 3 birds, you'll hear me say this a lot, they're going to look like pterodactyls taking over your paintings. So you just want to like keep a chill on those birds. Don't go too crazy with them. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is, I'm making a mess over here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to dip our brush into we're actually going to make little lights, same as our rainbow color. We're just going to mix them. Here, we're going to do this. So we're going to start off with the red. I can't speak. I'm just going to show, okay? I'm going to come with the red. I'm going to make little dots, like little lights. Dot, 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 dot. All right, this is a great way to cover up all the imperfections. Now, as we go into our pink, I'm going to dip my brush into some white, make a little bit of a pink puddle. And I'm going to go dot, 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 dot. I'm going to just go right on top here. So I'm going to get a little less on my brush, too much on there. So right where the black meets my reflection, I'm going to kind of cover that area up. So I love anything that's like a struggle when painting. I like to find ways to, hide any imperfections that people might be stressing about. Whoops, that was still wet. Okay, now I'm going to dip my brush into some orange. So I'm going to use a little bit of red and some yellow. And I used too much red, so now it's turning all kinds of colors. Let's get a little more red in. Always finding that balance between red and, too much red or too little red is always a challenge. Okay. So I'm going to do this here. Dot, 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 dot. And I find making the dots is the best when you have a lot of paint on your brush. Okay, now we're going into our yellow. So I'm going to take the brush, wipe it off. I'm going to use my yellow and my white. And we're going to come back with the white on here for a lot of things. So yellow. I use a lot more paint on these ones. So the dots are a little bit brighter, but that's okay. Or bigger, not brighter. Okay, then I'm going to dip my brush into my yellow. All right, here we go. Ta-da. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit of blue. I get really focused with these little dots. So a little bit of blue and some white. Oh, I have a lot of paint on my brush. That's like a little too excess. Can you guys comment in the comments? Let me know what it's never the shade you want. Yeah, orange is hard, definitely hard. And Melanie, hey Melanie, so glad to have you following on here today. Your work has been amazing. Melanie just painted, I think you're the one who did this, like a big picnic table. Did you do this, Melanie? Am I making this up? It was you, right? I just want to make sure. But big picnic table with flowers on it. It's so awesome, inspiring. I want to do it too. So, okay, now I'm going to keep going. Here we go. So yes, please tell me your favorite color in my Skyline. Which one is your favorite? Do you like the blue? Or not my Skyline, just in general. What's your favorite color? Red, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink? Let us know your favorites. Okay. Okay, yes, Melanie, I thought it was you, and then as soon as I said that, I'm like, well, what if it isn't her? Okay, and you just got featured in an Instagram post. You can put your Instagram on here, Melanie, so people can see what you did. These are a bunch of our members, and I'm sure they would love to check out your beautiful work. So post it in here if you'd like to share. Okay, and then we're gonna go over here. I'm gonna add some of my purple. So I'm gonna do a little bit of my blue, purple into my blue, just a little bit, but mostly want the purple, maybe a little bit of the white. And there we go, a few more. And there we go. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my baby brush off. We're going to be using the baby brush for the rest of your painting. You're almost done. And then I'm going to make an orange color. We're going to make our sun and then a reflection and then some highlights, okay? So I'm going to make a little bit of red and yellow. And yes, Lori, I know getting orange is really tough, but it definitely takes practice. So my secret is a little bit at a time. Just a little bit of red into your yellow. And then a little tiny bit of the white. If you do too much white, it turns into like a creamsicle color. So I'm going to make my reflection somewhere in the middle. You can make it like maybe, yeah, I want it to be kind of like right here. So I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to start small with a little dot. And then you're just going to get a little bit bigger. Yeah, you guys should go check out Melanie. Just posted her Instagram. Go check out her table she made. It's really pretty. And actually, a few years ago, I painted a piano with flowers. I think I'll also have to send it to you, Melanie, so you can see. We painted a whole piano with flowers. And I used to play piano as a kid, and I kind of want to like just do that. Not even to have I just want to have a painted piano in our house. It's beautiful. Okay, so there we go. And then to make the reflection, I'm going to come right below it. So I'm going to start right below my colorful reflection like this, coming out. I don't want to paint over my green too much here. I'm going to have it come out on each side. Now my water is still wet, so it's mixing with it a little bit, but you guys know what I always say. It's all about layering, right? So we're just going to take slow layers. You can always come back and paint over it. And I always have it start little, get wider. What you don't want to do is you don't want to do like a tornado where it goes really fast and big. You just want it to be nice little lines. They're going to start to taper off again. You can always add more lines. And then it gets really little at the bottom. All right. And then I'm going to add in some of the yellow, just plain yellow on here. And then because we're using our warm tones, I'm going to use some yellow and I'm going to use some red. If you guys mixed in the blue and the purple and stuff, you would get like a brown, which is not the look we're going for. All right, and I'm going to do a little bit of red. You don't want to do too much red because then it's going to look like a blood scene and you're not really going for that, right? So just a little bit. Okay, ta-da! That is it. You want to do this, but you don't have a canvas. Well, you could do this on a piece of paper. You do not have to do this on a canvas. So if you have paint, amazing. But you could do this on a piece of paper. You could do this on a piece of cardboard. You could turn your card, like you can cut out a cereal box and use the back of the cereal box. So yes, make a Nashville one, Melanie. Definitely, definitely, definitely. All right, and then the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of white. And we call this the plop and pull. All right, so I take my baby brush and I just do little dashes of white. So I plop it down and then lightly kind of pull it till it runs into paint. And I'm going to do this on my little buildings. We're going to put a lot of white in here. The white kind of cleans everything up. Plop and pull. This is our signature move after Legally Blonde's bend and snap. We like to plop and pull. So we just add a little bit of white in here. All right, so just a tiny bit. And you don't have to add it to every single part, just a little bit. Oops, this has some yellow on it. That's okay. Okay, so I just got some yellow and I'm going with it. So Melanie, what would your 2 buildings be in Nashville? Like, what would you make sure to add in? And would you put something like musical in? I feel like if you're in Nashville, you got to have like music notes instead of birds or something. I don't know. Maybe not. That's just what I know from Nashville. All right, so just a few little dashes of the white. And I'm going to put a few more at the bottom. Okay, there we go. And then the last thing, well, 2 more things. First, I'm going to do a few little white dots. So what this will do is it'll kind of transition all of our little dots. So I'm going to do a little few white ones. It'll make them look like a smoother transition. Sometimes when I paint, guys, I just can't talk. I just can't talk. All right. Almost done. Does that look cool? All right, and the last thing we're gonna do are some more reflections in the water. So a few more streaks. So what I like to do is you can do a few little streaks kind of coming down. All right, make sure we can kind of pop out a little bit more. I don't want to overdo it with the white here, just a little bit. And then let's see if we can take a big look at it and see if we need anything else. So just a few little white lines. All right, and then I might just do a few little horizontal ones in the water below. Give it a little bit of movement. And then a few little ones in my reflection. Check me out. All right, I think we did it, everybody. There, we got Pride off. We've got our month off to a good start. Pride starting us off, rainbows, happiness, and Melanie says, great ideas. Definitely the Batman building and maybe the Country Music Hall of Fame. It looks like a big piano. That is super cool. Nashville is, I've never been to Nashville, but I've been to Memphis. We drove through it on the way to Mardi Gras when I was in college. It's a really fun time. All right, so thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our class today. And go home, paint these. If you're at home, paint them on your own. You do not need to have a canvas. Paint on your hand. You can paint anywhere. That's the best part of painting. And you can use markers. This is something you could totally do with like Crayola washable markers. You can absolutely, I should make this in a Crayola. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll come on here and I'll show you how to do this with markers, because if you don't have paint, we don't want to hold you back from creating. All right. Create, create, create. Have a great rest of the month. Let's make this one a really happy one. And I'll see you all soon. All right. Bye, everybody.